So I've recently bought this second-hand hammer and it needs a good dress up. I'm just going to use a file. I thought that would be a good opportunity to show a couple of filing techniques. So first off, we're going to go for just to get a flat surface. You know, look, this doesn't have to be because you're dressing a hammer. This could be on anything. Okay, we used to use this a lot for dressing up flanges for pipe work and things like that. So obviously if you're just starting off even weighted here and you want to try and get that as flat as you can. Now obviously you're not going to get that 100%, so the idea is that you'll work away around from different directions, okay, even to the point where you'll move your, whatever your job is, you'll move it around in the vise. And if you're working the same sort of technique and moving to different positions. Okay, so we'll pause it there for a minute. So obviously this is a pretty hard metal that I'm using on this hammer, and you might be thinking, well, you're a bit silly trying to file that by hand, and that's absolutely 100% right. But what I have achieved here, I've got on this one side, which you might not be able to see. Let me just see if I can bring the camera in a little bit closer. Okay, so on this side we've got a lot more areas which have been touched by the file. On this side, not so much. So I'm guessing that we've got a lot of lows on this side. Alright, so now here's a good opportunity for us to grab the grinder and we'll just grind off those high spots, or a flat disc or whatever. I'll probably just use a flat disc, I don't want to take too much off. So the advantage of using the grinder in combination with the file is we can take more material off, but then of course the file is going to give us a better indication as to where our high and low spots are. And again, we'll hit it from different directions. Okay, so I've got a lot of blowouts on the around the edges here. So the next thing I'd like to do is just redo those radiuses. Now just quickly, this is a cheap radius gauge that I found on eBay. Just to give you a quick rundown how that's going to work, let me just zoom in here a little bit. Now the smallest radius I've got on here is almost around suitable for just these edges here, if you can see that. So if I particularly wanted to get this nice and perfect, you know, I can do some filing and then I can check against that radius. Okay, so I've just zoomed that camera right in. One thing I do see people doing from time to time, when they're trying to file a radius, they try and follow it around like this. Now obviously if you think about the way the teeth are digging in, you're continually taking the teeth away from your workpiece as you go. Let me just bring this forward a little bit. So what we want to do is we want to rock that file. So instead of following it round the curve, we want to start here and we want to bring it back on the curve. And as you can sort of see, you're keeping that weight on your workpiece the whole way through. You can actually see that file bite in. Whereas if I try and do it the other way, the file's just skidding off. Okay, so yes, you will take some material off, and it does seem like a more natural thing to do to follow the curve around as you would. But as you can see, if I really bite in there, yes, look, it works. But coming in here, I can really cut that corner and I can start rocking that file. I really should have a camera from the other end here, but I'll come in a bit lower. Okay, and you can see how quickly, let me just work this corner, front corner here. You can see how quickly that takes that material off. And let's come up on a sharp corner on this side. Now obviously we're going to take that off straight. Trying to keep my arm away from the camera a little bit. Okay, so now we've put a chamfer on that. So again, if I was to start from here once I get onto that flat, the file just wants to sort of skid off. Yes, it works, it takes off material. But by rocking in on this angle, first I'm taking off that top radius and then coming down here and taking off that bottom radius. So as you can see, that will break down the corners, a sharp corner fairly quickly. Okay, so we've got our hammer back in the vise. Also not a bad idea, your top sort of apex where you're filing, it's not a bad idea to have that in the middle of where you're filing as well. And that way, instead of rocking back down too far, you can just sort of rock it from here and rock it back. Compared to this side that we haven't touched yet, we can see how that's coming in. So we've got to come down a little bit here still, okay? So the last thing I wanted to just cover quickly today was drawer filing. Now look, there's some different opinions out there as opposed to whether it's, if it ruins files and things like that. Now obviously, and I'm using a small file here, which generally you will use like a 100mm file type thing. Obviously your file is designed to go forward, and that's the way it cuts. So if we're putting pressure on it and dragging it backwards, that's going to dull our teeth on the file. Now the same thing with drawer filing, which if nobody knows, basically that is where you take it and you're pushing it forward sideways. Now if you're concerned about damaging the teeth, and in fact it actually works a little bit better, you can give it a slight forward motion. So you're going forward as you're going across. And that's still drawer filing, so we're still putting weight on the forward stroke, okay? But we're just cutting across our piece as we go. And we're simply just gonna draw that back and forth. And the idea of this, if we're fairly happy that we've got an even weight on each side, we should be giving ourselves a fairly good level. So same principle as before, trying to hit it in every direction. Okay, so now I've got an area where I'm coming up in every single direction, I'm hitting that same area. So I know I've got a bit of a high spot here. And now we're going to check a little bit again. I still feel like I'm a little bit low on this side. But to be quite honest, for a hammer, look, let's just keep in mind, you wouldn't go to this much trouble to get a hammer perfectly straight. I've never attempted to get a hammer flat within 2/1000ths of an inch. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If we're doing work on more precision stuff, these are the sort of techniques. I'm simply doing this today because I had to dress this hammer up, and I have been wanting to do a video on some more precision sort of filing techniques for a while now. So if you're looking through the center there, you can see how flat we've got that. Now that's square up on the side, nice and squared up on the side. Okay, and if we come right over this side, yes, we can see a little bit of gap there because we are wanting to chamfer those edges off. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you some drawer filing. We've got a good surface of rust on here, so that should show up pretty nice for the video. So again, I'm just going to go straight across. And already I'm seeing the rusted areas that are starting to pull the rust off. So I know they're my high spots. So then I can either use the grinder, or I can come over here and I can focus on these high spots this way. And as you can see, that will very quickly highlight the areas that need a bit more attention. So coming back over to our hammer, so as you can see, that's all finished up. There's even a bit of a slight reflection happening there. I think I just brought that down to about a 60 grit or something like that. As I said, I picked this up second hand. It was pretty beaten up. There's a few cracks in the handle, but I'm going to get some good use out of this. I'm looking forward. I grabbed this particular because I like the shape. So I'll be looking forward to using this in the near future. Maybe give it a bit more of a tidy up, might get some of the rust and stuff off it, but yeah, hopefully you'll see this in some future videos. So anyway, leave us a comment, drop us a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next one.